Should Tua ever play in the NFL again?
Well, obviously, based on his concussion history, one would sincerely doubt that he should.
What good is $200 million if you can't recognize your family? What good is $200 million if you don't know who and where you are?
I'll be honest, I'll just tell him to retire. It's not worth it. It's not worth to play the game. I haven't witnessed anything like I've seen that's happened to him 3 times.
This past Thursday against the Bills, Tua and the Miami Dolphins were down big and needed to make a play. On a 4th and 4 in the red zone, Tua decides to make a run for the first down, only to be tackled by Damar Hamlin of all people on what seemed to be not that big of a hit, only for number 1 to hit his head and give himself yet another gruesome looking concussion. What makes this more scary is that this isn't the first time this horrific scene has taken place. Given what happened this past Thursday, I do think that we need to have a serious discussion about Tua Tagovailoa, whether he should continue in the NFL or hang up his cleats for good. Tua was drafted by Miami in the 2020 draft behind Burrow and ahead of the likes of Herbert, Love, and Jalen Hurts. While Tua did struggle early in his career, and some considered him a bust early on, things would turn around when Mike McDaniel would take over as head coach, and subsequently acquire Tyreek Hill to pair him alongside Jalen Waddle. Now, while things looked all fine and dandy to this point, this is where the first major concussion or injury, I should say, took place. It all started in a Week 3 game against the Buffalo Bills, where after taking a huge hit, Tua was shaken up, to say the least, so much so that he began wobbling on the field. While this to many seemed like a clear and cut head injury, controversially it was made to just be a back injury, and he would even return to this game. To me, that was the first strike, but technically speaking, this wasn't a concussion yet. Things would take a darker turn in the 2022 season in the next game against the Cincinnati Bengals, where we mentioned briefly in the beginning, Tua would take a routine hit, well, a relatively routine hit, but he would hit the back of his head on the grass, and he would tense and freeze up in a very horrific manner. This was so bad that he had to be stretchered out in an ambulance to a hospital where he would spend most of the night. By this point, the NFLPA would fire the independent neurotrauma consultant who was responsible for clearing Tua in that Bills game, despite everything that happened in that Bengals game, where some people even then were urging Tua to think of the long-term effects of what he's doing to his body. Tua shockingly returned just 3 weeks later against the Steelers. And there is an old saying that once you get a concussion for the first time, the likelihood of you getting another one suddenly multiplies. And things could not be more true, unfortunately, for Tua. As in a game against the Packers, Tua would get hit again, and while he didn't immediately enter concussion protocol, you could tell something was off. In this game, Tua was playing relatively good football, but after the hit, he would throw 3 interceptions in just the 4th quarter alone, causing the Dolphins to lose that one. It wouldn't be until after the game that Tua would enter concussion protocol, marking the second official one of his career and his second one in just the span of a few weeks. This would ultimately end his season and would cause him to even miss out on Miami's trip to the playoffs this year. So, I mean, right off the bat, with the gruesome injury earlier in the season to being concussed yet again, the questions continue to arise. Is it even worth Tua to play? And on the Dolphins' business side, would it even be worth, the trouble of trotting him back out? But the team and Tua came into an agreement that they're going to move forward with each other, and we're going to keep this thing going. 2023 was easily the best year Tua would have. It didn't hurt that Tyreek Hill was on pace before injury to break Calvin Johnson's receiving record. The biggest question that came from this season, or this past season I should say, is that Tua and the Dolphins could not beat teams in cold weather games. Still, it was enough for the Dolphins to believe in Tua, because not only did he play phenomenally, he also didn't really get hurt. So it put to bed, for the most part, fears of concussions repeating again and again. Due to the 2023 season, Tua would sign a 4-year, $212 million extension, which would make him the 5th highest paid quarterback in the entire NFL. But after this, it brings us to where we're at now. Despite all this training and putting on muscle this past offseason, it seems like it still didn't mean much in the grand scheme of things. On a play where he definitely did himself no favors, not just sliding feet first, still he would slam his head on the ground and would freeze up in that very same similar horrific fashion. And at this point, you've got to ask that question: is it even worth it anymore? How many times are you gonna put your family, your kids, your wife through that? Like, for me, I'm just talking like, would I want my daughter to continue to see me like this for those extra 100 million? And I'll get to his contract here in a second. But just from the human aspect of it, football is a relatively short part of most people's lives. You'll play for maybe 10, 15 years at most. Then you got the rest of your life ahead of you. From 40 till, when you're ready to move on at like 70, that's still another 30 years, ladies and gentlemen. You do have to think of the long-term effects, especially with head injuries. Tua should really consider retiring. And should he not get cleared to play, he would earn all of the $124 million guaranteed in his contract, which isn't the $212 million, but is the extra $100 million really worth it? And not only just Tua, I think the NFL at some point should step in. How many times are you going to let one of your biggest names get hit and fall to the ground like that before you say enough is enough? For my personal take, if I were Tua, I'd just take the $120 million guaranteed and just call it quits. I'd think that enough is enough. I wouldn't want to put my family through this, for potentially a third, fourth, or fifth time. And then 20 years down the road, I lose my mind because I wanted this extra 100 million, But that's my personal take. I think Tua definitely needs to take serious consideration. At minimum, I'd even say take the rest of the season, man. You cannot keep doing this to yourself. But those are my thoughts. What do you guys think? Do you think Tua should call it quits? Should he call it quits for just the season? Let me know your opinions down below. Be sure to thumbs up this video and subscribe to the channel, y'all. That'll do it for today, and I'll see you in the next one. Shaboy! Hey guys, if you're still here, feel free to check out the playlists right here. This should be How Good Was series. This should be my How Bad Was series. I think this is something you guys will enjoy. If you like sports, you like talking about career retrospects, this will be the playlists for you.